Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're looking at the last deck from Judgment, which is Spectral Slam, which is green and white. Yeah, I've sort of mentioned this before. I think in Air Razors is that none of the none of the Judgment decks contain black. They're mostly green and white because that's kind of the theme of the set is that green and white were in the ascendancy. So that's why a lot of the decks we've looked at are either green or white, which plays hell with my with my backgrounds. I had to go and find a whole new background to use in this one, so I didn't reuse my normal plains and forest backgrounds. Anyway, let's get on and look in the deck list here. So we have 23 creatures, we have 7 enchantments, we have 4 instants, and we have 26 lands. We have a mana curve off to the side there. So let's start looking at these creatures. So the theme of the deck is some creatures I have a lot of fondness for. So these are the phantom creatures. So these were spread amongst green and white, and it's the core of the deck really. So all the phantoms have an ability where they are 0/0s. They come in with a certain number of +1/+1 counters on them. They're not actually generally 0/0 because like the Centaur and the Tiger have some power anyway. So they have toughness 0 and they come in with +1/+1 counters. And if they take damage, you prevent that damage. And then if they have a +1/+1 counter, you remove the +1/+1 counter. That doesn't mean that the damage prevention it depends on them having a +1/+1 counter. If they have no +1/+1 counters on them, you still prevent the damage. So if you can find a way to give them permanent toughness, then they would still lose counters if they have them, but if they don't have them, then you just prevent the damage and they don't die, which is a conversation I had to have a lot with people because I had this deck and I played it, and it specifically said in like kind of the little rules pamphlet you got with it, and just like, look, if you give them permanent toughness, they're fine. And yeah, I had to have that conversation a lot because people think like, oh, it's really unfair why your creatures aren't dying, but they've lost all their counters. Like that's the point. Yeah, I really like the Phantoms. I think most of them been reprinted at some point in various sets and stuff, which I really like. Because I say a lot of fondness for these creatures. So Phantom Nomad is a 2/2. Well, it's technically not a 2/2. It's a 0/0 that has 2 counters on it. For 2, Phantom Tiger is a 1/0 for 3, and it has 2 counters on it. Phantom Flock is a flyer with 3 counters. Phantom Centaur is a 2/0 with 3 counters, but it has protection from black as well. Phantom Centaur I don't think has been reprinted, which is an absolute shame because like that art is so good. I would love to see that art in a modern frame. And then one of the rares of the deck is Phantom Nantuko, who is a 0/0, gets 2 counters on it, has trample, but it can tap to put a counter on itself, so it can like build itself back up. So yeah, really like all these phantom creatures. And then we have a few other creatures in the deck to kind of like support the phantoms, I guess. So Battlewise Aven is 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer. When you have Threshold, it gets +1/+1 in first strike. 3/3 flying with first strike would have been pretty good for 4. I think Battlewise Aven is perfectly fine. Also has some of my favorite flavor text in the whole game. Really like that flavor text. We have 2 Benevolent Bodyguards, which can sacrifice to give a creature you control color from the protection of your choice until end turn, which is pretty good. I think it's fine. 2 Blessed Orators, who's a little expensive, 4 mana for a 1/4, but gives all your other creatures +0/+1, which synergizes really well with these phantoms. Say you give them permanent toughness, you can't kill them with direct damage then, which is really good. Hallowed Healer is sort of another thing that synergizes with these phantoms. So 3 mana for a 1/1, taps to prevent 2 damage. You have Threshold, taps to prevent 4 damage. You could use this on your phantoms so they don't have to, I guess, lose their counters if you use Hallowed Healer to prevent the damage that their own innate ability would have prevented, I guess. I think that was the intent, maybe including Hallowed Healer in this deck. Obviously, it can prevent damage to you as well. We have a single patrol hound. Don't know what it's doing in here really. It's a 2/2 for 2 with no drawback, so I guess it's fine. You can discard a card to give it first strike turn. Yeah, fine, whatever. Two Iron Shell Beetles. It's the first time it showed up. I think this has been reprinted quite a few times, or like this kind of like green 1/1 that costs 2 that puts a counter on things when it comes in. It's really shows up a lot in sets in one way or another. Obviously works out really well in here because you just put an extra +1/+1 counter on your phantoms. And Force Mage Advocate. So there's a bunch of advocate creatures, which are these green-white sort of like weird wizard things in Judgment. So they all basically have an ability that requires you to return cards from opponents' graveyards back to their hand, which is pretty awful, I think, as a cost. Yeah, this is gives you +1/+1 counters on your creatures though, so it has some synergy with the phantoms. But I still think like returning a card back to an opponent's hand from their graveyard is like a pretty steep price to pay. Yeah, even like returning a land, then they have a land again to go. I don't know. So you have two Elephant Guides, which is a great aura. Enchanted creature +3/+3, and when it dies, you get a 3/3 green elephant. This would have been great on a Phantom Centaur. Actually, it was great on a Phantom Centaur. I can say that with first-hand experience. Just then made the Centaur incredibly hard to deal with because then you can't kill it with damage, and because the Centaur had protection from black as well, you can't kill it with a direct kill spell in black as well. So yeah, really like Elephant Guide. Really, really good aura in my opinion. A single exoskeletal armor, so 2 mana for an aura, gives enchanted creature +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. Basically turns one of your creatures into a Lurgoyf. Again, I think this is like pretty good, especially like late game. If this is giving, I think more than sort of like +2/+2, I think it's definitely worth it. Yeah, I just think it's pretty good aura. And then two Ceton's Desires, another aura giving +2/+2, or rather, the important thing here is the extra toughness, which is important to your phantoms. And then as Threshold gives a lure effect, which like lure effect's always really good because it just ensures that you can attack with everything. Opponent has to block all the block the creature with lure with everything they've got, so all your other stuff gets through untouched and ends the game. Then a few white spells here, so Strength of Isolation, another aura giving a permanent toughness boost, which is important for the phantoms. And it gives protection from black, which is really good because then it covers up one of their main weaknesses, which is being killed by black removal spells. And it has madness as well, so if you do ever discard it, you can still cast it for its madness cost and still get it. You don't have a lot of discard outlets in this deck, but it's good to still have it in case you need it. A single guided strike, which is an okay combat trick, gives +1/+0 and gains first strike turn, draw a card. Would have actually liked to see a few more of those in this deck actually, because I think it's a pretty good trick. The draw a card is what makes it really good. 2 Second Thoughts, 5 mana instant, exiles a attacking creature, draw a card. That's an that's expensive for that effect. The drawing the card is what makes it expensive, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. And then a single Spirit Flare. So 4 mana, instant, tap target untapped creature you control. If you do, it does damage equal to its power to target attacking or blocking creature an opponent controls, and you can flash it back by paying 2 mana and 3 life. I think that's fine. So you've got like a lot of auras in this deck that are pumping up the power of your creatures. So this would have been like a pretty okay combat trick, I think. And then the other rare in the deck is this absolute powerhouse, Mirari's Wake. So this is great, I think. So 5 mana, gives all your creatures +1/+1, and whenever you tap a land for mana, you get 1 extra mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So this is a great card. Very difficult to lose, I found, whenever I play this deck, and play Mirari's Wake. Gives all my phantoms permanent toughness, so they can't be killed with combat damage. Doubles the mana, so I can play more stuff with it. Just really excellent rare to have. And it's been reprinted quite a few times, but I think it used to go for quite a bit of money as well. And then just two non-basic lands, which is really interesting. So we have a single Croson Verge. So it comes in tapped, gives you colorless mana, and you can pay 2 and tap, sacrifice it, search your library for a forest and a plains, and put them into play tapped. Doesn't say anything about them being basic forest or basic plains, which matters, I think, because it means you know, if you're using this card in, you know, constructed formats, you get like dual lands out with it and stuff. I really want, I really want there to be a cycle of these, you know, that do all the other kind of like basic land combinations. Um, it annoys my kind of OCD tendencies. There's not a full cycle of them that does like forest and mountain and like mountain and swamp and all that kind of stuff. Like budget fetch lands basically. But yeah, I think it's like a really good choice in here, I think. And then Nantuko Monastery. This is like a weird card, I think. Tapped gives you 1 colorless. If you have Threshold, you can pay 1 green and 1 white, and it becomes a 4/4 green and white creature with first strike. The Oracle text, it's like an insect monk, which is amazing. Yeah, just becomes like a really big like manland, and again it really it really tickles my OCD that like there's not like a full cycle of these like for every ally color combination. Would have been really interesting actually to have this a cycle of these like earlier in the block, like in Odyssey, and then every color combination to get one of these like, yeah, a non-basic land that gives you colorless, but at threshold it can become a man land, and it can animate and attack and block. That would have been, yeah, I feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. Actually, would have been really interesting to see what like a black red one or you know a green red one would have become. Anyway, but yeah, so that's the deck. So what could have been? I mean, I'm biased. I think you know the deck is like pretty strong as it is. But yeah, a few there could be a few changes. Phantom Neshoba I think would have been fun instead of the Phantom Nantuko. So this is the only Phantom creature that I don't think was included. So it's 7 mana. Has trample, comes in with 7+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever it deals damage, you gain that much life, and has the Phantom ability, where you know you prevent damage dealt to it, but you remove counters. Yeah, I think this would have just been like a really big, great, fun card to have. You know, really big threat to have. The fact it has lifelink and trample is like really strong. Yeah, definitely would have liked that instead of Phantom Nantuko, who felt a little weak as a rare, honestly. Um, Prismatic Strands would have been a fun combat trick, I think. To it's more things that prevent damage, so it would have saved your phantoms from having to prevent damage themselves. Like if you can do it this way, I guess. Ray of Revelation is just destroy an enchantment that has flashback for a single green, so it's just a good utility spell, really. Even just one of those, I think, would have been fine. And then Unquestioned Authority to this is a really good aura. Gives the enchanted creature protection from creatures, and it draws a card when it comes in. So yeah, an even better choice for your phantoms. Prevent all damage that be dealt to them by creatures. Yeah, would have been, I think, pretty good. But I say overall, what is in the deck is pretty good. I remember being really happy with this deck whenever I played it. I kind of picked up at random, I think. 'Cause, I think Judgment was just tailing off when I bought it. Um, yeah, but I was really happy playing it out of the box. You know, it felt really strong, just felt really good. So I am biased towards it because I owned it and like had a really good time using it. But I do think like out of the 4 Judgment decks, this is probably the best one, just because like the Phantoms are like such good creatures. But that's my thoughts on it. Like, did you have this deck? Did you have sort of the same experience I did? Did you really enjoy beating face with a load of spooky centaurs and nomads and birds? Because you know, I definitely did. But yeah, stick a comment below if you had this deck, or like if you like the look of it, or if you've just got any comments at all. But yeah, that's now Judgment finished, and with it Odyssey block. So we're going to move on next video on to Onslaught block, which is not one I have too much experience with. It's kind of you know, when I was at a dip in sort of playing the game a bit, but still going to have a lot of fun looking at those Onslaught decks and you know reviewing them in this way. I really hope you guys are kind of enjoying these videos. But yeah, we'll be back next time and we will start looking at Onslaught. Until then, thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.